groups. This is a place of culture where people come together, where the things that we discuss seem quite banal, but nevertheless, when you're sitting there at the end of the evening on the campsite, people start talking politics, and then people start talking about the European Union. And there was a young man there, and he said, the European Union's a good thing, really. And then somebody else said, why? And then he gave 3 examples. He mentioned the single charging cable and the passenger rights.
Eines der Themen, wie wir die EU den Menschen nahebringen.
This is one of the subjects where we're really coming close to the citizens. Thank you.
Bardzo dziękuję. Well, thank you very much. Let me hand it over to Katrin Angensiepen.
Dziękuję. Menschenrechte sind vielleicht nicht immer der heiße.
Thank you. Human rights are not always the most important thing, apparently, for people, but we need them. We hear time and time again that people with disabilities don't get their wheelchairs and this type of thing, but we're talking about people who have learning difficulties, they can't hear or see, and assistance that they can't always take or use. I'd like to just make it clear that air passenger rights are human rights. And when I buy a ticket, a flight ticket, a train ticket, then it's a contract. I am a customer. I am a customer and I am a customer. People with disabilities are the same as others. We've made that clear. I know people don't necessarily understand it, but I bought a ticket and therefore I want to receive something even as a person with a disability. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll give the floor to Ms. Konečná.
Děkuji, paní předsedající, vážený pane komisaři, kolegyně, kolegové. Konečně zavádíme pravidla ochrany pasažérů.
Finally, we are coming up with rules to protect airline passengers. So far, they were at the mercy of airlines. This is going to put an end to the era where airlines simply exploited people, where parents had to pay to sit next to their child, where airlines tried to attract people with low-price tickets and then made them pay supplements for suitcases and luggage. Let's hope that all of that will come to an end. I agree with other parts of the regulation, which makes it easier for passengers to apply for compensation and to make it possible for, or rather makes airlines liable to inform the passengers. Let's hope that this...
Thank you very much. Now, Marta Wcisło. Well, thank you very much, Madam President. Ladies and gentlemen, finally, after 13 years of negotiations, we are improving passengers' rights, and airlines are to give us freedom of movement and not hidden costs and failures. I'm from Eastern Poland, from the Lublin region, and for many of us, a plane is a quick connection for treatment, for work. And finally, we will have price transparency, carry-on luggage included. Finally, parents may be seated with children, and all the compensations have been duly defined. However, a passenger cannot fight for months and months for the money that are duly owed to him. We are finally restoring balance between passengers and large airlines, and Europe is on the side of people and should be on the side of people, also from Eastern Poland and Eastern Poland. Thank you very much. And now, Madame Rojas Sorano Sierra.
Thank you very much. 13 years after the start, we have come up with an agreement. It's not our dream agreement, but it is the best that we have in a hard context, and that will prevent backsliding that the Council wanted us to start undertaking. And we were able to maintain our red lines for example, compensation for the over 2-hour mark and delays. Also, we were able to keep families together, improve the situation for those with disabilities, and make it easier for passengers to get clear information so that they can request their compensation without any barriers. It could have been better, yes. We could have guaranteed, for example, the right to carry-on luggage. We will keep on the path to work for this. But when it comes to passenger rights, we have bolstered them, and we've bolstered social rights in the face of the other competing interests.
Thank you very much. Ms. Miranda Paz has the floor.
La semana pasada estuvo en Bruselas.
Last week, there was a delegation in my country, in Brussels, that came to speak about fires. Between meetings, the flight from Brussels to Barcelona was delayed by 7 hours. So there was a connection in Santiago de Compostela, and they got to Porto, eventually in Portugal, and the excuse was that plane wasn't available, and there weren't enough places in the airports in my area because they're reducing places in the airlines, they're putting pressure on governments, and as we saw, it comes down to abuse. And the Commissioner said this as well, that these provisions have been approved finally after 13 years. Well, we know exactly what's happened. Delays, centralisation, companies doing their thing, unfair practices. And that's why we welcome the fact that passengers' rights are now being better protected. And
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Pani Przewodnicząca, Panie Komisarzu.
Now, President, Commissioner, this is a great day indeed because we've made very good decisions for the Europeans, 30 good decisions in total. This is what the EU stands for. This is what the EP stands for, and the European Commission as well. We are here to defend the rights of our own citizens. What does it mean? If the plane is late, you will be compensated. You won't have to pay for your child's seat. If you take your hand luggage with you, the price, it will be included in the price. If a person with a disability would like to fly, it will be taken care of by the European airline. And the same applies to musical instruments. And that was a bipartisan effort. And we were univocal in adopting of this draft. And I'm very proud of this union now.
Thank you very much. Let me hand it over to Vytenis Andriukaitis.
Nieobecny.
Absent. Maria Grappini.
Sorry. Mr. Andriukaitis.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Commissioner, colleagues, first of all, I would like to thank Mr. Novakov, the rapporteur, and Mr. Virginijus Sinkevičius for job well done, for an excellent compromise among all groups in the Parliament. I will not be talking about the rights of the people with disabilities, about children, about better information, about a return ticket when the inbound ticket is not used. So this temporary agreement that has been achieved, we have to really monitor how it is being implemented. Consumers' rights are always in the center of our attention. So when we have the monitoring experience, we have to, after 3 or 4 years, decide what further steps we have to take so that consumers' rights become even more better protected. Thank you.
Pani poseł Maria Grappini.
Thank you very much, Ms. Grappini.
Chair, Commissioner, colleagues, I was a member of the Transport Committee for 10 years, and I hope that we could make this reform of the PNR regulation work. And finally, we're here. and we have a broad majority in the parliament who defended this file. We fought a lot, and we have to admit that there was a lot of lobby from air carriers, and the council was stuck. And I'm also a member of the Income Committee. We have to protect consumers. Of course, we have to look at the companies. We have to help them resist, given the high fuel prices. But I think with this regulation, we managed to do a lot of things. Some of them were mentioned, with the children sitting next to their parents, people with disabilities. But we still have a lot to do, because you know what happens, Commissioner? There's a delay of 2.5 hours, not 3. But you know why? Not because there are exceptional circumstances, but because there's no airplane. And it's not the passengers' fault that they don't have a backup plane when one plane is broken or has a problem. But I think this is a very good result. We should communicate on it.
Thank you. Thank you. Jagna Marczułajtis-Walczak.
Szanowni Państwo.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to bring to your attention one particularly important aspect of a newly regulated provision. Let us imagine a person with disability who finds out that after landing that his or her card was damaged or has not reached the destination port, which is not a mere inconvenience. The wheelchair is more than just an equipment, so airlines must replace it or cover the cost of buying a new one. Also, a person with a disability should be accompanied by the person like an assistant without additional payment. Also, if there is no show, such a person should be entitled to another flight. So this is a true game changer. Much could be done to go even further on, but for the time being, thank you, European Parliament.
And finally, I'll give the floor to Mr. Alves Perez.
Presidenta, disculpe. Okay. Muchísimas gracias. Bueno, el reporter ha dicho...
Thank you very much indeed. Well, I hope we can all speak here. Yes, I think we all agree that the measures that we've taken are common sense, but isn't it also common sense to remember that these airlines are committing this type of abuse not through a lack of regulation, but rather a lack of competitiveness? And so if there's no real competition, they're going to increase the costs, driven largely through a bad European policy. What happens then? Well, they push that onto the consumers. So, you know, you've got this whole body there. We're hearing that the people should be up there saying, yeah, it's great. But I'd just like to say that more than almost it's taken over a decade for this. But what about it's not the first time that we've been discussing this type of question and asking to put them on the airlines as well.
Well, thank you very much. Let me hand it over to Andrei Novakov, the rapporteur, for 2 minutes.
Thanks for this. And I think European citizens have waited enough. I believe this is one of the long-lasting negotiation procedures, legislative procedures that this Parliament has ever seen. And we have no right to prolong it even more. We achieved the maximum possible amount of rights that we can grant European citizens, and same time preserving the companies' interest to fly, to get profit out of it, and to pay taxes and salaries out of this profit. And I think everyone can benefit from that. And I know that many of you think when we grant so much rights and they have to pay compensation and they have to include suitcases and later seat for free, is this going to harm the companies? My answer to that is the following. Does the roaming taxes that has this Parliament removed harm the companies? Do they increase their revenues or not? Yes, they increase their revenues. Do they bankrupt? No. They even further develop their businesses. They found new ways to gain profit and to develop. Same things will happen here with the passenger rights. And I believe this file, it will go down to history and to law textbooks in some universities that are studying European law. So I'm happy and I'm grateful that I participated in this process, and I'm grateful for all those that I have a chance to learn from, to sit right next to each other during the negotiations, and to all of you now, I beg for your support. I believe this will be the right move. Thank you so much.
Bardzo dziękuję. Zamykam.
Now, thank you very much. We wrap up this debate. The vote is to be held tomorrow. Now we move on to the next agenda item, that is Johan Stride's report, Financial Activities of the European Investment Bank Group, Annual Report 2025. Allow me to recall, because of the test which is now being in place, please stick to your time limit. I'm going to give the floor to the rapporteur himself, Mr. Stride. You have the floor.
Vielen Dank, Frau Präsidentin, liebe
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, representatives of the EIB and the Commission, the European Investment Bank plays an increasingly important role when it comes to competition and the security of Europe. The compromise text focuses on competitiveness, innovation, and technological leadership and resilience. It wants to support SMEs, scale-ups, and strategic sectors. It gives more protection for this. It also focuses on mobilizing private and public monies in order to close the investment gap in Europe and to create a basis for long-term growth. Equally important is access to financing for innovative companies. That has to be improved, and there has to be better conditions for scale-up in Europe. This also covers more rapid procedures for authorization, particularly for SMEs, startups, and also ensuring that local authorities have easier access to funding. The compromise shows that more competitiveness and cooperation must go hand in hand. It must be clear that innovation and investment in regions and Europe must be strengthened. A central component of this approach is the financial strength of the AAA credit rating. That's very important so that the bank can continue to finance at good rates. There's more and more need for investment, and that this is very important. It also strengthens the role of the EIB in the context of defense. Also to increase the resilience of the European Union in an increasingly challenging economic environment. At the same time, the investment talks about investments in the area of the environment. It says that it's important that we must contribute to sustainable energy. This also means creating a modern energy network to make sure that energy is payable both for citizens and for industry. Support for critical raw materials, climate resilience, and low-carbon industry. This means that we ensure long-term competitiveness of Europe and that there's a good industrial basis. The report also says it's very important to be transparent and to be stringent with accounting. At the same time, the EIB should continue to be a factor for growth and maximize the use of the funding and to use taxpayers' monies in a responsible way. I'm convinced that we have a balanced compromise now. It strengthens the role of the investment bank as the European bank and supports the competitiveness of Europe and its resilience and its leadership in technical terms. At the same time, it also ensures that the strength of the bank is maintained.
Wiceprezes Europejskiego Banku Inwestycyjnego, pan Robert de Groot. Bardzo proszę, 5 minut.
Mr. Robert de Groot has 5 minutes.
President, honourable members, dear Commissioner Dombrovskis, it is a pleasure to address this House on the debate on the resolution on the activities of the European Investment Bank Group in 2025. And allow me first to thank the rapporteur, Mr. Joachim Streit, for his engagement and assessment of our work. And your report rightly recognizes the EIB Group as the European Union's investment arm. Today, that role is very relevant. Europe faces a range of challenges. We are in the midst of a digital transition with AI, supercomputers, quantum, massive amounts of data, all of which needs your regulation. There's the ongoing green transition to have sustainable economic growth, to be more energy independent by focusing on renewables and a more complex geopolitical environment. Addressing them requires investment at a scale that needs both the public and the private sector. This is where the EIB Group can make a difference. 2025 was a milestone year for the EIB Group. We signed 100 billion in new financing, helping translate Europe's shared priorities into concrete projects that strengthen competitiveness, resilience, and security across the region, across the Union. One of our main priorities is strengthening Europe's energy security while remaining firmly committed to our role as the EU Climate Bank. In 2025, we provided 33 billion for energy security projects, helping mobilize more than 100 billion of investment across Europe. And this support is delivering tangible results. Projects signed last year will help build around 56,000 kilometers of electricity infrastructure, while renewable energy investments will provide clean electricity for the equivalent of 5.6 million households. At the same time, Europe must innovate to remain competitive. Through TechEU and our European Tech Champions initiative, we are helping Europe's most innovative companies to scale up in Europe and stay in Europe. The initiative has already supported 15 mega funds with more than 1 billion in capital and contributed to the emergence of 12 European unicorns. This week, together with more member states, for the first time private investors also on board, we will be announcing its significant expansion into a second stage. Small and medium-sized enterprises, like Mr. Streit said, remain central to this effort. And through the European Investment Fund, we will provide close to 16 billion in guarantees and equity financing for SMEs and startups in 2025. And indeed, you're right, we're trying to speed up our procedures for them. We also have to respond to the new security environment, and we have expanded support for projects that strengthen Europe's security, defense, resilience, and technological capabilities. Our financing now covers critical infrastructure and mobility, EU industrial capacity, R&D, SMEs in the supply chain, and the emerging ecosystem of startups and scale-ups in the security and defense sector. 5% of our financing within the EU goes to security and defense. In our neighborhood, our immediate priority remains Ukraine. Since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion, the EIB Group has provided more than 4 billion in financing supporting energy, transport infrastructure, schools, hospitals, and housing. And at the same time, we are supporting the next generation of EU member states. The EIB Group is the investment engine of the EU accession. In Montenegro and Albania, we are well positioned as the EU's large-scale, policy-driven infrastructure financer. Compared to 2025, the EIB aims at almost tripling investments in Montenegro in 2026, and in Albania, the EIB is committed to increase financing this year by 60% compared to 2025. Honourable members, your report rightly highlights the value of InvestEU. At a time when every euro of the EU budget must deliver maximum impact, we should build on instruments that have proven their worth. InvestEU allows the EIB to mobilise private investments for Europe priorities, and this approach should remain central to the future European Competitiveness Fund. Finally, I would like to say some words on the bank's accountability framework. I'm aware that these policies are important to you, as they are to us and are important to any democracy. We have in place a robust accountability, audit and control framework set up by our governors. It exceeds levels of other multilateral development banks. We stand ready to do even more in 2026. We thank you for your report and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. On behalf of European Commissioner Valdis Dombrovskis. Over to you, Commissioner.
Honourable Vice President de Groot, honourable members. I would like to thank the Parliament and the Rapporteur Joachim Streit for a very comprehensive report and the opportunity to present the Commission's views. The external environment remains challenging. I can assure that the coordination between the European Commission and the EIB is closer than ever. Not only on how to fully mobilise the EIB potential to meet the current challenges, but to do so in line with the EU policy priorities and strategic interests. There are four main points that I want to underline today from a Commission's perspective. Firstly, on competitiveness and economic security, EIB work is as important as ever. From facilitating access to capital for our innovative startups and scale-ups, to looking into more into critical sectors to support, like AI, quantum, clean tech. We should mobilize all possible avenues and instruments, from attracting institutional investors to aligning the next multi-annual financial framework to support these priorities. This constitutes a huge potential, including via higher risk-taking. I also would like to highlight the important role of the European Investment Fund, acting as a market catalyst and cornerstone investment, as well as a bridge between investors, national stakeholders, and the real economy. Based on its earlier success, the EIF is just about to launch the second edition of the European Tech Champions Initiative that will complement our Scale Up Europe Fund, contributing to the European financial ecosystem that addresses our scale-up financing gap. Secondly, the fallout on the Middle East illustrated all too well how the EIB's group investments in energy security remain extremely relevant. Critical raw materials are also in a focus, and we are considering options on how to speed up deployment in this area in line with the Resource EU Action Plan. Thirdly, the Commission welcomes stepping up investments in security and defence, also mentioned in the report. There can be no competitiveness without security. It is important that the EIB seriously looks for possibilities to further step up its activities in strengthening EU defence capabilities and improving the defence supply chains. Moreover, the EIB is a major partner for the Commission in delivering on our strategic priorities also outside the EU. On Ukraine, we commend the EIB's group's continued commitment to enhancing Ukraine's resilience and supporting its recovery. The EIB's engagement will also be critical in a post-war period for Ukraine's reconstruction. Let me add that unfortunately Europe, and especially its member states on the EU's eastern border, continuously feel the impact of Russia's war more closely through hybrid attacks, increased drone incursions, sabotage activities. In line with our February communication on eastern border regions, we expect the EIB to pay particular attention to challenges these regions face. Lastly, I would like to mention that EIB is also our important partner in efforts to deliver the action plan for affordable and sustainable housing, working with us on a pan-European investment platform for housing. I congratulate the EIB on its progress in simplification and reducing time to market. We need quality as much as speed in our reactions and investments. I therefore welcome the Parliament's report that brings important insights and recommendations for the work of the EIB Group. It is critical that the EIB Group can continue ensuring a balance between being a bank with a public mission and maintaining agility to ensure its attractiveness as partner for project promoters. I am confident that we can rely on this productive approach also in the future. Thank you.
Dziękuję bardzo.
Thank you very much. On behalf of EPP, Karl Ressler for 2 minutes, please.
Dear Commissioner, dear Bank Vice President, colleagues, last year the EIB mobilized record funds more than ever, and we really congratulate them on that. At the same time, Europe should decide that is invest more in its economic competitiveness and resilience. We are competing with economies that invest more, aggressively, and that are more focused in terms of strategic priorities. This is why the role of the EIB is especially important and strong where the market cannot respond quickly enough. The EIB have to continue supporting small enterprises that are the backbone of European economy and a precondition for our long-term competitiveness. This includes startups and scale-ups as well. Investment in new strategic priorities in defense, in security, in energy, in new technologies is no longer only a question of development. It's also becoming a question of the survival of Europe as we know it today. Capital can and has to reach good projects more quickly. In global competition, often it's not important how much we invest, but how quickly we invest. That is why we have to simplify the procedure for authorizing finance, of course, with the necessary safeguard mechanisms. That is why we continue to expect transparency in the EIB work in order for investment to be in line with the real needs of citizens and with the changes in the EU economy. By achieving all these goals, we are creating the preconditions for a stronger industrial base and for keeping more knowledge, capital and innovation in Europe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On behalf of the Socialists, Carla Tavares. 1 minute.
Madam President, Vice President, Commissioner, the EIB is the European Union's main investment arm. Its strength consists in its stability, credibility, and the trust that it has built with markets, businesses, municipalities, and citizens. Its top credit rating is not a technical detail. It means that the bank can secure favorable financing and support European priorities with more affordable loans. Therefore, any expansion of the EIB's mandate, including in the area of defense, must be done with balance, without jeopardizing its credibility, the financial stability, or the diversity of its priorities. We support the EIB's adaptation to new priorities, including competitiveness, innovation, and defense. Its mandate must reflect the scale of the challenges that Europe faces. But our message is clear. The EIB cannot be done to the detriment of housing, cohesion, SMEs, and the climate transition. On the last one, the recent heat wave that swept across Europe these last weeks has shown just how urgent climate policies are for the EU. We think that a stronger EIB is also important.
Thank you very much. On behalf of the Patriots, Angelique Fureur, for 1.5 minutes.
Rien qu'en France, 60 000 petites. Well, 60,000 small companies and craftspeople closed last year. Companies are